day that you don't show me. Okay, I'm dropping a new link. I don't know if it's the same as the old one. Okay, it's a different one actually. So I'm dropping a new link, and on the new link, I just want you to click on the link and let me know if. I think my thoughts are drifting away again. Okay, I call myself back. Okay, so that's the link, guys. And one of the things that can actually make my thought drift away is when I don't have enough engagement from this class. So when I just try to find out if you're still there, please just give me a response as fast as possible, so that I don't leave you here as well. Because I can actually be talking and I'm not here. That's very possible. It's a different technology. Okay, you're welcome, guys. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Thank you, Lord. Okay, so can you guys see this stream live on YouTube?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's showing. Okay, so basically, and you can turn on your cameras if that helps. Please, you can turn it on. And I think there's light. So if you are staying in Thomas Estate and your camera is turned off, you are wrong. There's light. I'm a witness to that. Or is there no light?
There's no light here.
Wow, I actually think there's light. It's very hard to know if there's light or there's no light. Okay, there's light now. See, okay, there's no light
But
here.
there's light in the bush.
You should
It's
move to
not
the
Thomas
GRA
Estate.
side of Thomas Estate. Okay, you're welcome by the way, but you can turn on your camera. I just need the engagement, please. And Peter is not looking at this place. Okay, so we have two screen sizes basically. We have a desktop, and I'll use D because writing on Sketchpad is very horrible. So to save myself the stress of writing, or let me just attempt it. Desktop. Yeah, and
It's darkness.
Yeah, it's fine, sir. We measure a lot of things. We measure most of the things we measure in pixels, right? I said pixels, and now I'm sure that the idea of pixels is actually clear to most of us, right? Because
Yes,
it's just like when you want to travel, you measure your distance in miles or kilometers. So while we are computing or coding or programming user interfaces, we usually measure whatever we are doing in terms of
yes,
pixels. Pixels is actually the standard, dimension we measure with. Okay. And I'm getting a delay in yes, sir. So please, if you are watching from YouTube, you shouldn't really watch from YouTube live. You should stick to Google Meet because YouTube will have some latency. The goal is just to keep it open so we can see that the stream is actually still on. That's the idea. You get the point. So don't use it to join this class. It can slow you down because I probably will say some things and you'll be answering 10 minutes later. Okay, so we have a desktop screen. And the standard desktop screen size, I don't want to guess. So, and this could vary from monitor to monitor, but the standard one is basically 1920 by 1080. Yeah, this is the standard one. So let's just get that and say 1920 pixels, by, and this looks really ugly, 1080 pixels. You get the point. So this is what we have on desktop. And of course, no mobile phone will be this wide in terms of pixels. It's impossible. If a mobile phone is this wide, then it is no longer a mobile phone. It becomes immobile automatically, right? Because if it is this big, then there will be a sort of challenge. So the reason why you talk about mobile responsive design is because you want people to be able to look at people that don't have desktop or don't have access to their desktop devices that have this dimension of screen size, this 1920 by 1080. You want them to be able to access your website even when they are on their mobile phones. So you have to be able to translate what is on your on the 1920 1080 display. You have to be able to translate it to what you have on your standard mobile phone, which is actually way smaller. You get. So most times you just get like the standard iPhone has about, I think, 400 and I don't know, let's say 460 pixels. Is actually very small by maybe 700 and blah 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 pixels. You get the point. So it's actually different. So this is more like almost you can actually get 4 of this screen, 4 of the width of this screen, this particular mobile screen, this one. You can get 4 of it in this one alone. So if you display something here and it looks so fine, you don't expect that you put it on this smaller screen and it will still look fine. Does that make sense? You can't do that. It won't look so nice because you might have to scroll to the side. Some things will shrink together and look like sandwiches, you know, and you don't want to make sandwiches. You want to make a website. So and majority of people that will probably use your application or visit your website will be visiting basically from their mobile phones. You know, like most of the times, majority of the website, except for maybe people that work steadily on their laptops. But before you started working steadily on your laptops, most of the things you access on the internet, you access on your phone. So it is always smart when you're developing, you know, a website or building a website out, you build it having the mobile users at heart because they are the majority. So if you are building something for desktop only, like desktop only screen, you probably will lose a large share of the market, which is the people that use mobile screens. You get the point? So you want your application to also be accessible using mobile screens, and that's where the idea of media queries come in. So you use media query to target the same element. So it's just more like a superior way of selecting, you know, selector specificity. So you are saying on a smaller screen size, I want this selector to now have this kind of rule set. Meanwhile, on a larger screen size, this selector has this other kind of rule set. For instance, I can have a div inside of my web page, and this div, I gave it a width of 400, maybe like 1400 pixels, because I'm building basically using my, you know, I'm developing from a desktop screen. So when I do this on desktop, it displays fine because remember I have 1920, so 1400 will fit perfectly inside 1920, right? But using that particular dimension, when I come to my mobile screen and that div is still, you know, 1400 pixels, doesn't it become a problem? Because what's the dimension of our screen here? 460 pixels. So it can't work, right? It doesn't make sense. That means if the user will have to see the entire content here, he will have to scroll horizontally, or the things might eventually shrink because there are some default behavior that CSS just has. And let me just experiment with that in a couple of minutes. So no, I don't want to do that. So let me just minimize this window. Then let me open Visual Studio Code and let us, you know, let's get something started quickly. Okay. So I will open the usual folder. Yeah, the one we normally open. Jesus, that's not what I intended. So OIBC classes, yeah, this is the one I want. I don't want all of those things. So I will just, you know, let me just delete everything inside of here. We don't need it, by the way. Okay, I'll delete everything. And I'll create a new one. I'll say move okay. Jesus, it's a long word, and I'm at the risk of spelling it wrongly, but it's fine. It is not a grammar class. Okay. Oh Jesus. Okay, so I'll just create a div, and nothing serious, and let me just put an h2. So I'm going to say my div, and my div looks great. Very simple guy, doesn't have so many companions, just goes on its own. So I have a style, and I'm going to target that div, and I'm going to give that div a width of, remember we have, and we will not probably have, we probably not have 1400 because I've already resized the window, but I'm going to, you know, expand it again, 1400 pixels, and then I will set the height to, you know, 1000. Maybe height won't be much of a problem. Okay, 1000. Okay, let me set the height to 1000 pixels. So I'll save that, and let me start this with live sample. So this is my div. Obviously I can't see anything, so the only way to see something is to set the background color, and let's say the background color of light blue. If we see something, okay, you can actually see my div now. It looks very wide, right? And then I can actually get it, and I think 1000 height is actually it's asking a little bit too much of our viewport. Okay, let me do 900. Okay, what is that? Okay, maybe 800 will be a perfect fit. Why is that happening?
How about 500?
Huh?
How about 500?
500. Okay. I'll do 400. Okay. Do 300. Is everything correct? Everything doesn't look correct. This can be 3. Okay, well, this screen actually has a smaller resolution. That's probably why. So this is it now. So let me just expand this, and expanding this, you can actually see that we have some space here, and there's enough room to contain this dimension on our desktop screen. So I'll just go to the developer tool and try to simulate a mobile screen. And the way we do that, of course, you remember, is by clicking on this tab, mobile phone icon. So when we click on that, you can actually see what's happening. We are not seeing the totality of our div now, and you can see how small everything has become. Okay, I'm on iPad 12 Pro, so let me just do a responsive. So you can see that a lot of things are actually going inside to the side. We want this same behavior to be simulated. We want to be able to see this white space regardless. So because I gave so much dimension to my screen, you can see that everything is sizing down. And if you're a mobile user, you probably will have a difficult time reading the text on the screen, right? Because it's like more like everything is not, like, things are just out of proportion. But if you're on a desktop screen, you can see everything pretty clearly. The dimension is okay. The screen is sizing it properly. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let me just let me add another div just for emphasis sake. So I'll give this another div. So let me give them a class name in this regard. Class, and call it div1, and I'll call this other one div2. Yeah, and div1, div2. So this is going to be basically div1. So let the first one be div1, and then let the second one be div2. Copy everything, just make it very similar, other than except for the background color. So I'll change the background color of this one to maybe to one shade of red, basically. So you can see, and what I'll do basically, since both of them are in the body tag, so I'll just give the body a display of flex to put them side by side. And okay, so because of my this is a desktop screen, obviously, and as a result, there's enough pixels to actually make it responsive in its right, to actually try to put them side by side. But what happens when I make my screen even smaller? When my screen becomes unreasonably small, let me just do this. You can actually see this because this is probably a big screen, and let me just to make more emphasis, I'm going to write a paragraph out, just to so what I'll do is I'll just add a couple of divs again. And the reason I'm adding a couple of divs is so that you can actually see this. So you can see what is happening now. As I go towards the smaller screen sizes, you can see the big screen doesn't actually complain. It kind of sizes it properly. You can see everything still sits well properly. You get the point. But as I go towards the smaller screen size, you can see that things actually start things start getting flowing out of their parent. And that's not a normal behavior. It is because the screen doesn't have enough room to actually keep them where they are supposed to be. Do you get the point? So what I want to be able to do is, for instance, when I get to a smaller screen size, I want to be able to set my flex direction to column so that these things stack on top of each other, again stacking side by side, because there will be there's no enough rooms and screen size to put them side by side on a smaller device screen. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So these are the things that makes media query actually, make it a thing. Because as your screen size gets smaller, some items will not display the way you expect them to display anymore, because you don't have enough enough real estate, or maybe land mass on the screen to be able to entertain all of those elements the way they are displayed on a larger screen. So as a result, you might have to do media query to be able to size down those elements using media queries. You size them down for respective screen sizes. So when you are on a desktop screen, you want it to be side by side. On a smaller screen size, because the idea of side by side is going to be a disaster, so you want to be able to use another style rule set, CSS rule set, to be able to position these things in such a way that they don't disrupt one another. So one of the things I will do now is, let me just keep it back on that small screen size. So this is just to show you a vivid example, so you can see what is happening now. We have some disaster on our screen. A lot of elements are overflowing out out of their parent container, and that shouldn't be so, because the paragraph is seated properly. There's nothing wrong with the structure of our HTML. The only problem here is that our screen size is actually becoming smaller, and we need to use media query to display our elements in a different way entirely. So one thing I will do with media query, so I will just do media query. Of course, you are familiar with the syntax now. So I'll do media, and I'll do screen. I'm targeting the media type. I'm targeting the screen. I'll say and then I want to say the maximum width, where I want to the maximum width to apply this rule set is okay, this font length 43. So I think around 900, 800, 700, everything still looks fine at 700. Everything looks fine at 660. So let's set our breakpoint at this 620, 650, where everything starts becoming messy. You can see that this is where everything starts becoming messy. So we set a breakpoint, and that's the screen size we are actually putting here. So we set a breakpoint for 650 pixels. That's our breakpoint. So we are saying the media type we are targeting now is screen. So we are looking at variation in screen sizes, and if the maximum width of a particular device is not more than 650 pixels, let it apply this rule set. So one of the rule sets we apply, by default, display flex is going to what? Have a flex direction of row, right? By default. Does that make sense to you guys? By default, display flex places elements in this direction. It places them horizontally, right? By default. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we want to do now is, on our body tag, because we've already set a display property or flex, so we will not be saying display flex anymore. We will not be setting a display property. We'll just target our body element inside of the media query. You can see we are targeting the same selector. And the problem, we talked about the cascade, and we talked about CSS stacking from top to bottom, that if I set a new rule set under a previously defined one using the same selector, the one beneath is going to override the one above it. Does that make sense? So in this regard, because of this media query,
can you check your mic? What's happening? Your word is like fast forwarding.
Are you serious? I doubt it. Is it the same for everyone?
Fast.
I guess it's your network.
Is it okay now? Was I actually fast?
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine now.
Like
Yes, it is.
I became fast.
It's not like you have. It's not initially. It's not like probably you are fast too. It's like there's like an auto fast, or maybe you mistakenly press the button. It's just
No. I'm not doing
taking it fast. You can go ahead. It's fine now.
So remember, I said if I set a rule set, for instance, if I go up here, like I have a background color on my body, I say background color. Background. How do they spell background color today? Background color of light green, or let's say light green. If this is what I'm setting, I set it here. And if I come down and say on the same body property, I set a background color of red, definitely the one beneath will overrule it, but it will override it. Do you understand that? Because CSS comes from top to bottom, right? So, but in the case of media query, it doesn't work like that. So let me save this. So if I set a background color now of red, I have light green here. If I save it, see what happens. It changes it now, But by the time I move to a bigger screen size, you see that that color is out. So it is not a conventional, and if I change the screen color, maybe background color now to yellow, you will see that nothing actually happens. So because of this media query syntax, it only changes your elements based on these CSS rules if this rule set this breaking point has been reached, and that breaking point is 650 pixels wideness of the screen. So any screen that is above 650 pixels, this rule set will not apply. Whatever rule set you have in this media query will not apply to it. Does that make sense? It will only apply to
Yes.
your element if the screen size exceeds or falls below from 650 and below. So it is either equal to or less than 650 pixels. That is when this rule set will be applied. So if I change this to mean width, that is, it is going to be applied to what? 650 and above, that is greater than or equal to 650 pixels, is when the rule set will get applied. So you can see the color is yellow now. You get the point? So I'm saying the minimum width you will apply this style is when the screen size is at least 650 pixels. But when I change this to max width, I'm saying it is at most 650 pixels. Anything beyond 650 pixels, don't apply this rule set. So this is how we write our CSS to be able to become responsive across different screen sizes, because this breaking point is actually the breakthrough point. It breaks through for us. So because we know that most of the users of the internet use their mobile phones to surf the internet, so now we can build web pages using a single code base, using the same HTML code, but by just writing basic different media queries just to position specific elements in a special way for special screen sizes. Then we can now use the same code base to just do dynamic things across various screen sizes. Does that make sense? Okay. So let me remove the background color. Yeah. So let's go back to our mobile what's it called? So our goal is to change the flex direction of the body tag. So we are not changing the background color.
Okay, sorry, sir. I have a question.
Okay.
So this media query, the media query, can you only use it for the background color?
No, you can use it for anything whatsoever. For instance, your button is very big because you were coding and you were developing on a desktop screen. Your button is very big. As your screen size becomes smaller, all the elements should also shrink to fit the screen size. So whatever property you are able to apply writing your regular CSS, you can apply it using your media query. Just that at different breakpoints, whatever rule set you set using the media query will be applied in a generic way. Unlike when you write normal CSS, that it is whatever you write is general to whatever element you're targeting. So another thing I would do now is, for this first div now, we have a background color of light blue. So it's not just background color basically. You can target anything. For instance, what I'm about to target now is the flex direction property. So on the body tag, we know by default the flex direction is row. So even if we don't do flex direction row, everything still appears on a row. So we have row here like this. And I've removed the color here. That's why the color actually changed. So if I say flex direction column and see what's going to happen. Now it puts them on top of each other. You see that it now has a better display now. Does that make sense? Now there's enough room to actually take those contents even when we are on a smaller screen. You get the point? So let's say our paragraph on a normal day is about 32 pixels. Sorry, the font size. The font size is 32 pixels, and that's going to be a lot of font size. So you can see how big it is. And let me actually use something bigger to make it look really unreasonable for smaller screens. So you can see how big it is for smaller screens. But if I switch over to desktop, maybe everything will still be fine, and maybe everything will not still be fine. Okay, that's actually too big. It's very unreasonable actually. So okay, it's still unreasonable. So, and that's why
25.
That's why you use Jesus. That's out of the world, out of this world. Okay, 1.5. Yeah, let me use REM. Okay, so we have I'm using REM now. So what I want to do is, as my screen size becomes smaller, I want to be able to reduce my font size. Does that make sense? For different breaking point. So now we have, who is that? So you can see that while the screen is big enough, there's no problem with the text. But as the screen becomes smaller, it becomes a problem. And as I resize my screen, just watch this side, you're actually going to see the dimension of the screen on this top left, or is it top right? Okay, this is right. Top right corner. So as I resize my screen, you see the breaking point. You see when it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem around this time. So we are around 1385 pixels. Do you get the point? So from 1385 pixels, I want to start reducing my font size so that it still sizes and fits inside of the box. Does that make sense? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I can do here is I can set another media query. Okay, but before going into different media query, let me just target.
So where does it show that one
Eh?
program is 5 pixels?
Hello?
Where does it show the 1385? I was like,
Here.
where does it
Here. Watch my mouse. This top left corner.
show the 1385 pixels?
Yeah, the top left corner. The top right corner right here is actually going to come. You are going to see it. But once I
can't
stop,
see it.
can you see it?
See
Once I
that?
stop
Am I
resize, you should be able to see it now. It will go out once I stop resizing the screen. Can you see it now? Can you see it? The top,
Oh yeah, I can see it there.
yeah. So that's it.
I can see it. I can see it.
Okay, so let's
Yes.
focus on our.
Top right.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
focus.
Thank you.
Let's focus here. So on this particular breaking point. So what we are going to do here is we target our paragraph. You can see we are on 688. So the initial breakpoint we said is 650. So let's go down to 650. Okay. So on because we actually we've made this reflex direction of column. So you can see we can actually see. So we can set a different font size for our paragraph at the 650 breakpoint. So let's set a font size. So we say you can see how small it is now. That same font size. You see how small the 1.5 rem is actually very small on our mobile screen. Can you see that? So what we can do now is we can come here, and target the same P element and set a font size for the P element, and let's set the font size of 3 rem maybe, if that will make sense. You can see that it's bigger now, and this 3 rem is only applicable to these screen sizes and below, to 650 pixels width of screen and below is what is applicable to. It's not applicable to anything higher than that. It's only applicable when you get to 650 pixels, and I'm seeing that from here. It's actually at this point 650 and below is where you get to see it. So from 650 you see that particular and I think that's actually a little bit too much. So 2.5. So if we inspect it now, you can actually see that our media query somebody should please check YouTube and see if we are still live.